Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the webinar today. We're going to be talking about self-worth and self-love. Interesting concepts. So, Paul, tell me a little bit about what's your take on self-worth and self-love?
Well, I will think that your self-worth is what you maybe what value you feel you have in yourself.
Yes.
Or self-love may be. Oh, I'm not sure what the difference would be there. Self-love is maybe what you think about yourself. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about those two together.
Yep.
And you talk about them, that you start to realize, hey, how are they connected? How are they related? Because perhaps we use them interchangeably, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good thing. So what do you believe is the relationship from one to the other, from self-love to self-worth?
Well, for me, just thinking about it, when it comes to self-worth, that might be something that some people haven't yet discovered clearly or with great certainty. And self-love is maybe something that makes me think that I haven't engaged in enough, having love for myself.
Yeah. How would you do that, Paul?
Beg your pardon?
How would you do that?
Self-love, engaging in that would be maybe having perhaps a couple of affirmations you say in the morning, maybe.
Sounds like a good idea.
That'd be. Maybe acknowledging some good things you do.
Beautiful.
Good question, actually.
It's quite thought-provoking, isn't it? It's something that, funny enough, if we speak to most people, somewhere in the conversation, there'll be something about self-worth. There'll be something about self-love, perhaps not in those words, but both of us will know that that's actually what we're talking about, won't we?
Yeah.
And yet when we directly look at it like this, it's quite intriguing. We're kind of, we realize that maybe we don't have a clarity around what it is, or we have some ideas, but how complete are those, or how actionable are those in making a big difference to either thing? Firstly, by understanding where we're at in our self-love and in our self-worth and how they relate. And then what can we do that affect self-love and our self-worth, and why would we want to do it?
Yeah, good questions. Yeah, good questions. As much as I've heard these words, I haven't thought about it in that depth, because what you're saying to me is having real certainty and clarity means that I can appropriate this in the right direction for myself.
Or at least have a choice whether you want to progress it at all, and if so, which direction. And knowing what you're doing now, what effect is that having? Is it taking it and changing it from where it is today? And if so, in what direction is it taking you? Because right now, let's just assume that what we think and feel and do is actively shaping our life, which I think most of us appreciate. We have that level of impact on ourselves. So if what we're thinking and feeling and doing is affecting our lives, and in this case, our self-worth and our self-love, and if we don't know about it, then we actually can't comment on whether what we're doing is serving us to better those things or not.
Yeah.
And yet it's one of the things that perhaps all of us want in the core of whom we are.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. All right. Well, those are some really good foundation steps for us to start this conversation with, because really self-love is the emotional place we have for ourself. In other words, take a moment, Paul, close your eyes, take a big breath, big sigh. Find our feet flat on the floor. And as you breathe and have a big long sigh, that's it. Allow that feeling of flow inside you. And as it flows inside you, allow that feeling of connection to something bigger than you. Oh, there you go. Very nice, Paul. Look how easily it connects for you. Now, also, knowing you're a family man and knowing how much your kids mean to you, take this moment to just think of your kids in your heart. So feel them as if they're right there with Father's Day and that beautiful emotion they have for you. There you go. How you doing there?
Yeah, good, good.
Right. So this feeling right here, this is the feeling of love. So if when we connect with ourselves, or we think about connecting with ourselves, either emotionally or intellectually, is this the feeling that underpins, or how much of this feeling underpins that connection, Paul?
Oh, I'd say probably all of it.
Take a moment, breathe in, think of Paul. Right, does that feel the same as it did just before when you were thinking of your kids?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
So just now, does it feel the same as it did before when you were thinking of your kids?
It felt very similar. I would say that.
Very nice. So that's a good way we can gauge what's our emotional reaction to ourselves, you know, because if we can think of someone or something that we love very openly, very from a surrendered place, and if we get that same feeling about our connection with us, then we have a nice sense of self-love emotionally. Now, how does that reflect in our everyday lives? What are some of the things we might see or feel that indicate to us that we've got a good level of self-love? Well, so you might find that you have some good, healthy boundaries with yourself and with other people. You know when to say no, you know when to say yes, you know, or it may be improving. You know what the reaction of them is on you. So if you say no and they're upset, how does it affect you? And being aware of that is a place of good self-awareness and self-love, these feelings you're talking about. You might find that your actions are a lot more calm and just flowing. So there's less of some of those addictive patterns that we might all have. You might find there's less acting out from a place of emotion. So for example, a common one that we see is people eat emotionally. They're not hungry, but they find themselves eating as a way of processing emotion, which is too much for them. And it could be a number of different things.
Yeah.
So that prevents this feeling of being full of myself. Before, when you were feeling that self-love, just describe the sensations inside for me, would you?
Oh, just calming, and like if you're blowing a balloon up,
Yes.
you're releasing that balloon as expanding and filling with some goodness, and it was
Yes.
cool.
Very, very beautiful, Paul. And that's really what self-love is us having the ability to give to ourselves first.
Yeah.
And getting those sensations and experiences you just described. And then when we have it, it's really easy to make it available to others, because if we have it ourselves, we can make that available. If we choose just to give it to others, just like we might with our kids as parents, sure, they get to feel our love, but it feels empty. Something is missing in it. And the missing bit in it is that they're not getting the imprint of how it is for us to be full before we make it available. So from an emotional and energetic learning point of view, that's a lesson that isn't available in the moment because we might not have been aware of it, and certainly they're not. Whereas from this place, when you're aware and you're making an active choice to fulfill your own self, to give yourself that love and fill up, and then make it available. Making it available means I keep filling myself up and it overflows. And as it overflows, it's there for others. Now, they may choose to take it in, they may choose not to. Either way, I'm in a good place because I know I'm giving that connection to myself and to and from the universe and something bigger than me. So when we're reacting and taking action from a place of emotion, then we're not in that state of being full. We're not in that state of empowerment. That emotion is leading us into something whereby we're losing more connection to the moment. And by doing that, our self-worth lowers because we're not actually filling ourselves up. And of course, anytime we do something which is not aligned to our highest and greatest truth, we've just gone along with something, even though it was important, then our self-worth takes a battering. You know, some part of us inside goes, oh, see, look at that. I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. Or whatever this language is. So it's really quite interesting how these things play out, isn't it?
Definitely.
So it's important for us to understand, what are the actions we take? What emotions are they connected to or not? And what state are we in these moments? Obviously, it's not something that we can be analyzing through the course of our day. But like most other things, as we consciously set an intention to know these, we automatically get a sensitivity to understanding, where are we really at? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I doing? Are those things aligned from a place that is very filling and calm and connected? And you know what? In that filling, calm, connected, there could be a lot of emotions. So we can be calm, yet feel emotional. And it can be any sort of emotional. It could be the good ones. You know, I'm loving towards someone. I'm happy. I'm joyous. It could be others that we think are not so good, whether I'm angry or I'm resentful or something like this, which is still within the spectrum of our human emotion. The challenge is if we're acting from those places and thinking something else. So a common one someone will tell me is, oh no, I'm not upset about that. Yes, my guy told me this the other day. He said, yes, my wife had an affair and she left me. I'm not upset. It was the best thing, really. and in his mind, I totally believe him. He was consciously, that's the choice he made. So that could be a little bit like what you were saying before with having an affirmation. That was an affirmation he was telling himself, which was from a really good place. But emotionally, he wasn't aligned to that. And guess what? His actions reflected that. Yeah. So, you know, he was very passively aggressive towards his ex-wife. And he started to use the kids to try and manipulate and get back to her. Very subtle, not aware of it. Now, if he's doing all those things, how's his self-worth going to be, Paul, in that example?
Yeah, not congruent.
Yeah, and is it going to be, which direction do you think it's going? Will it be getting fuller and better? Will it be getting worse? Or will it just be meandering along?
It'd be lower, it'd be getting worse.
It would be, because he's out of, as you said, congruence with himself. So he's out of truth with himself. Now, it doesn't mean he should act angrily. However, if we're not acknowledging that we have these feelings, and I'm hurt and I'm rejected and I'm angry, you know, and part of me wants to make that person pay for the pain that I'm in, and we can align those feelings to ourselves and create that authentic connection between our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, it's going to be easier to surrender and come back to this place. And whilst it's a calm place, look at all of those emotions this poor man was feeling. And you know what? He started feeling those, and he absolutely came to this calm place, and he felt sorry for what he was doing to himself and to his kids and his ex-wife. And he made a different choice. He went, you know what? This isn't aligned to who I am. And in that moment, as he was able to connect and give himself love, his self-worth was soaring through the ceiling. Just like he said, everything he did that aligned him to his truth increased his self-worth and the way others treated him. So he got off, he rang me back the next day, and he said, you know what? we finished. I went home, and there was a text message from my ex-wife saying, "Darling, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm ringing so late." So she was apologetic and very polite, and asking him if she could have the kids. And he goes, "She never does that. She never does that. She usually either doesn't tell me, or it's a short, sharp, curt, aggressive message." And so that change in the place in us affects everyone and everything around us. And it's a choice whether we want to. Firstly, do we know how to? And of course, we can do lots of things, physical activities we can do. There's things about looking after ourselves. Definitely the affirmations. All of those things are fantastic because they're a reflection of A, our intention, B, the action we take. But it's also important to align all of those to the emotional reality we have and understand that being in a place of self-love also means we feel all of these other feelings, including some we don't like or we may think is incongruent with love. To be angry with you and say, "I hate you," doesn't sound right. That's a self-loving place, does it? And yet when it's in balance, absolutely, it's a very healthy place where we feel everything. It's not about what we say to others. We can acknowledge the feelings in ourselves, come back to this place of connection and love, and it increases our self-worth. And as soon as it does that, I mean, surely, Paul, you must constantly look at people and you can tell, hey, this person doesn't really like themselves that much. Or you just get a feeling about someone else. Wow, that person's in a good place.
Yeah.
Very, very, it's not that hard for us to usually tell that about someone.
Yeah.
And the more aware we get, the easier it is to identify them, because you know what, they reflect us. And we can see in that moment, hey, I'm in a good place. Oh, that person's in a horrible place. You know what? Oh, I gave to me. I feel really good. You know what? I'll just give to me and it'll flow over. And if they can take it in, great. And if they can't, well, you know what? I'm giving myself plenty. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty deep and pretty cool. So you're recording this. Am I able to watch it again?
Absolutely. This is recording and it'll be put into the cloud for everyone because we're covering a lot of messages here. It's a short webinar, but I just want to take the opportunity with these little webinars to talk about important things and realize that, you know what, we can consciously take actions every day, which is fulfilling our intention to create more conscious choice. It's got to be conscious action that creates conscious choice. And the more aware we are, the clearer and more focused those conscious actions can be. So I'd encourage you to really listen to, we've covered a lot today. And if we can apply just a few of these things, you know what, you'll start to see really, really big shifts. Even, and I meet many people who are in a beautiful place, you know, they can be in a really spiritually connected place and it reflects in their everyday lives. But in the sensitive areas of their lives, it doesn't. It's hard for them to maintain that. So if we just apply the simple things, all of us can have significant changes to our own self-love and ability to love more, and then reflecting in our self-worth. And from that place, the decisions we make, the choices we take, what to do about it to align that to our truth, and know that the more my self-worth is expanding, the better my self-love is. And also, it's an increasing cycle. And then I'm a better man for who I am, for me. Yeah. And I'm more of me for my loved ones and for everyone else.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, man, thanks for joining. I hope you got something out of today, and for everyone else, you know, if you get a chance to listen to this, I think we covered some good information today.
Oh, that was fantastic. So where am I able to watch the recording?
So if you jump onto the YouTube channel, Paul, and subscribe, it'll be loaded on there in the next 24 hours.
Oh, okay. So I just search your name, do I?
Yep, just jump onto YouTube, search my name, join my channel there, and it'll have all of the previous webinars and information, and this one will be loaded on there too.
Oh, excellent. Wow. I think I was meant to have heard this. Pretty good.
It's been very good for me too, so I want to thank you. You know, I talk about this topic, and obviously it takes me to a beautiful place, which I'm now going to go share with my family. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.